Hello, welcome to the Manasplained podcast. I'm Connor. Today I'll be talking about the Gwendlyn Corci deck I built. This deck is interesting. It uses a strategy that not that I fundamentally disagree with, it's just that it doesn't make for fun games. It's a very good strategy for more competitive play patterns, especially in one-on-one formats. But in a group setting, it's usually just a little more frowned upon, and that's hand disruption. Gwendlyn Corci makes a one player discard a card at random, so it's not targeted, and they don't get to choose. So you could hit a land, or you could hit their win condition. It really is up to the gods of chaos, but yeah, I just don't really super agree with using this in a multiplayer format like that. That being said, I did try to lean into it as hard as possible because I wanted to make the deck kind of themed around discarding. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and share the video with your friends. Any kind of thing to help boost engagement or get these videos out there, help grow the channel, I really appreciate it. So for the breakdown of the deck, 23 discard cards, which is a lot, and I had to cut out some that I just didn't think were efficient enough because I had a lot of choice with this deck. That's one thing I was, not that I was surprised about, I knew there's a lot of discard options, but it's just that I was able to distill it down to the cards that I really liked, instead of with sometimes with some other strategies, I'll have to just kind of pick cards that loosely fit the strategy or are just very inefficient because there's nothing else out there that kind of fits that role. So yeah, having a lot of choice for the discard was really helpful. In addition to that, the sub-theme, 8 cards of sub-theme, you'd like to usually see that a little bit higher, but there's not as many payoff cards for discarding that where I would see that the payoff you get versus the amount of mana you have to put into it to be worth it. Just some synergy cards to help keep things going, especially because Gwendlyn has a tap ability. There's some synergy cards you can build into that. And then 3 protection spells because your commander, people are going to want to remove it before it removes the removal spell from their hand. So Gwendlyn is going to be a target of a lot of removal, so you need to stop that. So for the rest of the deck, that's 8 draw, 10 ramp, 10 removal, 2 board wipes, and 36 lands. I didn't put a lot of draw in the deck because I didn't feel like it was super necessary. The whole point of drawing cards is to get more advantage over your opponents, to be able to get more answers and whatever. But when you're making your opponents discard cards, they're -1 while you're at 0 if you're not drawing, versus if you drew and they didn't, you'd be at 1, they'd be at 0. If this deck was full of draw effects, you could just really kind of destroy them with them having to discard all the time, you drawing a bunch of cards. But at the same time, I did need to make concessions on how many discard effects I was going to have versus the other thing. And a lot of the draw effects in the draw category are repeatable. They're not just like one-time draw 3 cards, they're engines. So I felt like I didn't need as many of them because they were so repeatable. 10 ramp, I like to run anywhere from 10 to 15 in my decks. Lately with some of these decks it's been less than because I needed so many slots for other cards, but I was able to fit 10 in here, which I'm happy with. 10 removal, you're discarding people's cards, so because of that, that's a form of removal, and when you're making them discard cards, there's a chance you hit the removal, and there's a chance you hit their important stuff as well, so you might not need to use a removal on it. But at the same time, if you don't, because when Corci is discarding at random, you might not hit the piece that you need to, and they still won't be able to cast it, so you need to still have that removal backup, just in case. And then 2 board wipes, just because I feel like, and almost every deck should run board wipes. Sometimes I don't have them in my decks, and I do have good reasons for those when I don't have them, but unless you have like very solid reasons for something your commander does or like the theme of the deck, board wipes are always important, because if you don't have them, there's a chance you just get hosed. But oftentimes you need to run the right board wipes. You can't just run any old board wipe. It needs to kind of synergize with what you're doing. And then 36 lands is bog standard, and none of the lands are super interesting, but it's a good land package. So all in all, it's 8 crossover cards. Again, I like to have at least 10 because it increases the value per draw of your deck, but at the same time, 8's better than like 1 or 2, so I'm happy with it, but I like to see that number 10 or higher, hopefully. So the first category is discard. So the discard category, I didn't want to just play a bunch of instants and sorceries and stuff like that. I wanted to make the discard repeatable and that you can use multiple times, so you can hit, since you have 3 opponents, you're going to be able to hit everyone in a card that's like, you discard a card, like a Thoughtseize or something like that. wouldn't be as useful in a format like Commander because it doesn't hit everybody. So yeah, because of that, I wanted effects that were repeatable. So the first 3 cards of this category, Kroxa, Haunt of Hightower, and Scythe Spectre. Kroxa's nuts. Kroxa is basically a 2-mana sorcery that makes everybody discard a card, and then if they discard a land, they lose 3 life, which is insane. And then later on in the game, you can pay 4 mana and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard, and then you get a creature that does it again on ETB, and then whenever it attacks, it also does that. So yeah, Kroxa is ridiculous. Haunt of Hightower, very cool card. You'll see a lot of other specters in here that whenever they attack, or whenever they deal combat damage specifically, that's when they will make someone discard a card. But the Haunt of Hightower is on attack. You don't need to deal damage. So even if it's blocked, you still get to make someone discard a card. And the fact that it gets bigger per card entering a graveyard from anywhere, that's mill, that's discard, that's removal, fetch lands, anything. It has to be into opponent's graveyard though. He gets a 1/1 counter. So Haunt of Hightower can get very big, very fast. And then Scythe Spectre is 6 mana, like Haunt of Hightower, so it is expensive. But it makes every discard a card whenever it deals combat damage. So it's insane. And then each player who discarded a card with the highest mana value among those cards loses life equal to that mana cost. So, like, yes, you're gonna have people, it's gonna want people to keep all of their big bombs in their hand and discard the small stuff. But if you're making people discard like mana rocks and lands, so they don't take damage from Scythe Spectre, you're really going to be slowing them down because they could be missing land drops, they could be missing out on like ramp if they need it or something, and then if it's like, crap, I don't need this big 8 mana card because it's like I'm not going to cast it for a while, maybe I've been screwed out because I've been discarding lands and stuff early on from all the other discard effects, they're just going to take damage for it. So yeah, all these cards are insane. These are the rest of the Spectres in the deck. The most interesting ones here are Blazing Spectre, just because it has haste. That's super useful and efficient. Silent Spectre gets someone to discard 2 cards, which is just insane value. And then Hypnotic Spectre's on damage, not combat damage. So if you had a way to make Hypnotic Spectre ping people, it'd be so efficient. I didn't put that in the deck because I just didn't want that only combo with Hypnotic, but I can see someone else in a different deck maybe doing that, and then Hypnotic Spectre becomes an absolute menace. So Draxus Spectre is awesome because it has Unearth, so you can get it back later with haste. You only get 1 more attack with it, but I mean, that's better than nothing. And then Blizzard Spectre is also a form of removal, bouncing a permanent back to someone's hand. They get to choose what they're returning, but if they only have lands out, you make them bounce a land to their hand. Blizzard Spectre's nuts, just like all these Spectres are very good in their own right. These are all the discard cards that draw you cards. So Burning Inquiry makes everyone draw 3 and then discard 3 at random. Super great. You could maybe hit some crazy cards out of other people's hands, and also it's discarding 3 cards, so it helps with all of your discard synergies out there. Siphon Mind is 4 mana, everyone discards a card, you draw 3 cards if you're playing a 4-player game, which is amazing. If you're playing like a 5 or 6 or 7 person game for some reason, this card just goes up in value, which is nuts. And then Dark Deal is a wheel effect, but everyone's hand size gets 1 card smaller. It really hurts you probably the most because say you have 5 cards in hand, you cast Dark Deal and your hand goes down to 3 cards, but you're making everyone else's hand size go down by 1 at the same time, so it's almost worth it. And because of the discard effects in this deck, I wanted to run it. And I don't like wheels on average because when you're running something like a Windfall or even just a Wheel of Fortune, if you're not the lowest with, like, if you're not Hellbent after you cast it, like, if you're not the lowest cards in hand person, you're essentially just giving one of your opponents, like, more cards for no good reason. And even then, you're still replacing their hand so they could potentially get more removal for you or something like that. So yeah, I have been less hot on wheels as I've gotten better with Magic and better at assessing card value, but and at the same time, I understand that wheels can be really good to help with certain specific strategies, like being able to play a shit ton of cantrips or something like that, and then keep going off. So yeah, Dark Deal, good card here, wouldn't run it in most cases. These are just some sorceries that make people discard cards. The strongest one here, probably Arterial Flow, 3 mana, making everybody discard 2 cards. And then if you control a vampire, which Haunt of Hightower is a vampire, if you happen to have him out, everyone loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. That's crazy. Taskier's Cruelty, if you have enough cards in graveyard when you go to cast this, it's discard for 1 mana. You do have to exile some stuff from your graveyard. They're not running any graveyard recursion in this deck, but you still need to have stuff in your graveyard. And you also want stuff in your graveyard to exile with Kroxa, so they're kind of competing there. But over the course of a game, it should be fine. You should have enough cards to be able to get the delve cost and the escape cost for Kroxa. And then these are some discard effects that happen more than once. They happen multiple times throughout a game. A Painful Quandary, that's just nuts. Either whenever someone casts a spell, they either lose an 1/8 of their starting life total, or they lose a 1/7 of their hand, assuming they're at 7 cards. And as their life total goes down, they will want to discard from their hand more. But as their hand gets small, they're going to want to pay the life. Painful Quandary is insane. This card's ridiculous. I need to put this card in more decks, just as like a hate bear kind of effect, because holy crap, this card is redonkulous. Angrath the Flame Chain, its +1 is everyone discards a card and loses 2 life, except for you, its opponents. So that's just like a solid +1. It has some other stuff on there, but honestly, in this deck, you're not going to want to be using that. You're going to want to use it for the discard. Keep going off like that. And then maybe you might -8, make everyone lose life equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. You could really deal a lot of damage with that, but you're mostly looking for the discard so you can get a benefit from it. Speaking of that, like Raider's Wake, it has a benefit when people discard cards or opponents discard of that player losing 2 life. But it also has a way to discard cards. It has at the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature, target opponent discards a card. So it only hits one person, doesn't hit the board, unfortunately. But at the same time, you're hoping to get in with those specters, get more discard going, and just really ruin everybody's night. These cards are great. I think Painful Quandary is ridiculous. Some more discard effects. These are all one-offs. All the 4 creatures there just discard on ETB. Fel Spectre is interesting because it also is another payoff for discards. Another drain 2 life from an opponent whenever they discard. That's fantastic. And Hopeless Nightmare being a ridiculous, absolutely insane card. I played in a Pauper tournament that Maldhound was hosting one time, and holy crap, I got Hopeless Nightmared so bad, because not only do you discard a card, lose 2 life, then you can someone could bargain Hopeless Nightmare away to draw a crap ton of cards, to play another Hopeless Nightmare, to bargain it away, to then play something else that drains you life, to you lose. Hopeless Nightmare. I can't believe that's a common. That should be an uncommon. Look how much text is on it. Holy crap. So the sub-theme in this deck is discard payoffs. Cards that draw you cards, drain your opponent, steal their crap. You know, typical Magic stuff when your opponents discard cards. Turgid, possibly the strongest card in the deck, potentially. Whenever opponent sacrifices or discards a permanent, you may put that card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This effect is insane. This card is ridiculous. No one runs it as a commander, because if you do, you suck and everyone will try to kill you instantly, because this card is so stupid. I've tried to build this deck a couple of times. I've been like, you know what? I'm going to build that Turgid deck. I've hopped into my deck builder. I put 50 to 60 cards in the deck, and then I look at the deck list, and my soul vomits into my mouth. I'm like, wow, this deck is disgusting, and I hate everything about this. This is so mean. I'm done. And then I'll put it away. I'll delete the deck list, whatever. And then a year will go by, and I'll be like, you know what? Or like 6 months, and I'll be like, let's try it again. That Turgid deck, that seems like it'd be fun for me to play, do some cool stuff. And then I put 50 to 60 cards in it, and I go, right, it's just as bad as the last time I did this. But I love the effect because it's very cool. It's very awesome in the way that you get to take your opponent's stuff after you make them get rid of it. The problem is, it is just so easy to make people sacrifice permanents and make people discard cards. Wheel effects, not fair. I know it's black, so there's not many, but still, not fair. Anyone else running any wheel effects, which tend to be common, like Windfall, they get hosed. You can run cards like Pox and Smallpox to make people sacrifice lands, and then you get those. Like, Turgid is ridiculous. This card's nuts. Like, like, the last time they had an effect like this, it was an It That Betrays, which is 12 mana, and is only the sacrifice part, not the discard part. I don't get this card. It is insane. And then the rest of these cards are here. Waste Not, really good kind of modal thing. Whenever anyone discards any type of card, you get different benefits depending on what it is. You can get creature tokens, you can get mana, you can draw cards. It's just kind of good overall that way. Geth's Grimoire draws you cards when people discard. That's insane. The amount of value you're going to pull out of Geth's Grimoire is ridiculous. And then Tiny Bones, again, draws you cards when players discard, but it's only at the end of your turn, so you can only draw up to 3 cards with Tiny Bones. Oh no, it's only 1. If an opponent discarded a card this turn. Wow, that's worse than I thought. But it's still good, drawing you cards, draining life. And then if you had the mana sitting around and wanted to, you could activate this thing to get rid of a quarter of people's beginning life total. He does activate at every end step, so if people are discarding cards during their turns, it works better. And like, there are some cards that I did cut because they make everyone discard on their upkeep, but which would be good in like a Tiny Bones deck because you're getting that card draw back. But I just didn't feel like it worked in this deck without having Tiny Bones as the commander. These are the discard payoffs that drain your opponent's life. The only worth noting card here is Megrim, where it deals damage and not drain. That can come up if a card says like, hey, negate damage. Megrim won't happen. Or if a card says, hey, this player takes double damage, it doubles Megrim's damage. So you do have to be careful about that. But the strongest card here, probably Liliana's Caress, being at 2 mana with all the other discard going on in the deck. You get out super early and you can really start draining people's life total with it. So for the synergy category, synergy, just trying to work with how Gwendlyn taps and stuff like that. I went back and forth on the synergy category a lot, figuring what I want to add, what to take away, and I'm really happy with where it is right now. So these are all the untap effects for Gwendlyn de Corci. Free from the Real Impediments aura are just so insanely mean. Like, oh my god. So paying a blue mana to untap the enchanted creature, like, you can activate Gwendlyn as many times as you have blue mana, which is just kind of bonkers. These cards are nuts. They go infinite in 1,000 ways in other decks with creatures that can generate mana. But I don't have any of that in this deck because I'm not a huge fan of infinite combos. But at the same time, like, you could activate this 3-4 times in a turn, and Gwendlyn's just going to be pinging people's hands, and then they're going to be pinging their life totals, and it's going to be drawing you cards, and then if you have Turgid out, you get to steal their crap. It's just, it's insane. And then 1,000-Year Elixir, giving Gwendlyn de Corci's tap ability haste is great. Also untapping, like Magerite Stone and Patriarch Seal. Yeah, these cards are nuts. That's why they are in the deck, because they just synergize with Gwendlyn so well. And then the last 2 of this category, Illusionist Bracers and Rings of Brighthearth. Yeah, I just, like, my god. Illusionist Bracers, just whenever you activate the ability of the equipped creature, you double it. So Gwendlyn's ability happens twice, and you can pick a different player or the same player if you want to just double down and really hit someone's hand and be super mean. Then Rings of Brighthearth also can double up Planeswalker abilities. So Angrath's in here. You could pay 2 out, and when you activate that, in order to make everyone discard 2 cards and lose 4 life, while you're just sitting there kind of laughing maniacally, twirling your mustache. So ignoring the word protection over the fact of the picture what's going on over here, but because Gwendlyn makes people discard cards, you need to protect her from getting murdered. So I'm not running a lot of protection here because there's so much other discard effects in the deck that Gwendlyn's kind of just like sitting on top of the bones that are discarding everyone's cards. But at the same time, you're still going to want some protection because some of the discard is because of attacks and people might have blockers, so Gwendlyn might be your only way in. So yeah, here's that protection. These are the protection spells. Kaya's Ghost Form being the most interesting one. I think if you're running a commander deck and it has black in it and you care at all about your commander not dying, Kaya's Ghost Form is just so insane. And if you have a way to recur it, it's even more ridiculous. Like, the fact that you put it onto a planeswalker or a creature you control, and it stops them from being destroyed or from being exiled and bringing them back. Like, and not just that, like if you put on a planeswalker and you ultimate it to kill it, Kai's Ghost Form brings it back. Like, I don't know, Kai's Ghost Form, just one of those cards that whenever I have a black commander deck, I automatically include it in there because it's so efficient at 1 mana, and it's so good at protecting your commander or any of your important pieces that are creatures or planeswalkers, because it can also stop them from dying to a board wipe. Now that Farewell's in the game, where it exiles all creatures or enchantments or artifacts or graveyards, I mean, like, Farewell doesn't hit planeswalkers, but it hits all creatures, so you can slap Kai's Ghost Form onto your commander and stop from getting exiled. Yeah, no, these cards are insane. And Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, yeah, no, these cards are great. So, like I said earlier, the draw is more than one time usable. You saw that earlier with Geth's Grimoire and Tiny Bones, but I have some other reusable draw effects in here. These are, whenever you deal combat damage, you draw a card. They added a 4th one recently with the Ixalan set, which Ixalan is probably my 2nd favorite plane, or tied for 1st plane with Lorwyn. I love me some dinosaurs and some merfolk and some pirates. It's very cool. And the Indomitable is just such a cool card, being able to recur it if you have some tapped pirates or tapped vehicles. Yeah, no, Indomitable is so great. And then Recon, Coastal Piracy, Binding of Thassa, all as well, just draw cards on combat damage. And Binding of Thassa can force your opponents to attack so that you're able to swing in on them on the next turn, so to help you draw more cards and then whatever. So yeah, Binding of Thassa, very cool card. And then if you already have a couple of these out or one of these out and you didn't need Reconnaissance Mission, you can always cycle it away for a new card. So yeah, again, all these cards are great, all at 4 mana, just super useful. And then you saw all these cards already, the last of the draw category, which also synergize or discard cards. I forgot to add Geth's Grimoire here. That's very funny, but I guess I have 9 crossover cards then. My bad. So for the ramp, it's a Grixis deck. Can't do much land ramp, unfortunately, and not doing any graveyard recursion-y stuff, so just a bunch of artifacts helping you get ahead in the game. One of them is a creature, though, that being Nightscape Familiar. Blue and red spells cost 1 less to cast. There's a lot of black in this deck, but you will still have some blue and red spells sitting around, so Nightscape Familiar really helps with that. Soul Ring, Patriarch Seal, just more good ramp, really help get the deck going. Wayfarer's Bauble, Obsidian Eye, Obelisk, and Cold Steel Heart all give you colored mana. Obsidian Obelisk, though, only gives you colored mana on multicolored spells, which is really interesting. Help you cast Gwendlyn with her pretty restrictive casting cost, and then Wayfarer's Bauble getting you a basic. I've said it before, probably my favorite colorless ramp source. And then these are the signets that fit in the deck, all of the Grixis signets. The more important ones are Rakdos and Dimir and Arcane, because you're going to need a lot of black mana, because Gwendolyn's casting cost being a blue, 2 black, and a red. So since we're in Grixis, you have access to really, really, really efficient removal, in that black is like typically the murder removal colors. So because of that, we got some really solid removal in the deck. Blizzard Spectre you saw before, bounces something back to its opponent's hand. They get to choose, unfortunately, but they don't get to choose with Eye of Nowhere, Boomerang, and Snap. Snap only hits creatures, but it essentially costs 0 because it untaps 2 lands, which is just awesome. Like, as efficient as you can get, basically. Snap's great. And then Boomerang and Eye of Nowhere, getting any permanent to its owner's hand, so you can bounce lands. You can bounce lands with these things. It's so gross and so strong. Like, some more permanent removal. Abrade hits artifacts or creatures. Walk the Plank, 2 mana, destroys any non-merfolk, being nuts. And then Feed the Swarm, you pay some life and destroy a creature or enchantment. Yeah, no, also insane. Feed the Swarm seems a little insane, how it can hit a creature or enchantment. It probably should have said creature or planeswalker, because, like, let's be real, black being able to remove enchantments does not fit the color pie. but you know what? It's fine, I guess. And then last but not least, the blue removal spells. Rapid, Hybridization, and Pongify. Any deck that has blue, I'm putting these in it now. They're so strong. They're so strong. Leaving a 3/3 around is honestly fine because that's less bad than the thing you destroyed for 1 mana. Yeah, no, these cards are like just so ridiculous. I know Magic before has had issues with color pie stuff, and like they had issues with like some cards bleeding into other things, and they had that. Well, and then they did planar, where they did that on purpose. But like, holy crap, these cards are nuts. And then Resculpt is a better version of it. It's definitely more blue, leaving a massive creature behind that's 4/4. That's actually something that can pose a threat, but only hitting an artifact or creature. Resculpt is definitely a lot more balanced than Rapid Hybridization or Pongify. Now for the board wipes. So like I said earlier, there's only 2 of them, but I mean, they're necessary. People are going to put down creatures and start swinging them at you, and you're going to need to be able to deal with a lot of them because you're discarding people's cards. They're going to want to kill you. So the 2 board wipes here, River's Rebuke only hits 1 person, but it does completely clean their board minus lands, which is absolutely bonkers. And then Displacement Wave, hitting up to X non-land permanents, returning them to their owner's hands. These cards are great. Displacement Wave, pump 6 mana into it, you get to bounce 4 things back to people's hands. Yeah, no, these cards are just kind of insane. So the lands for this deck aren't super special, but lands are important, and because Gwendlyn de Corci's mana cost is kind of restrictive, you need a pretty good mana base to be able to support that. So I played some lands in this deck that are, I wouldn't run in all of the decks. I ran all of the cycling double colored lands because it's good to have multiple colors, be able to pay for those costs, as well as a bunch of the Signet lands to help filter mana, and then running all of the Battle Bond lands because the multiplayer lands and the multiplayer cards should be in the multiplayer products. And so I think these should be more readily accessible, and I feel like more people should have access to just all lands in general. One thing I don't like about Magic is how expensive mana bases are, and I really feel for cards that, it's not that they don't do much, because there are definitely some lands out there that do a lot of things. I really feel like just the cards that fix your mana base, the lands that get you the colors you need, I really feel like they should be a lot cheaper. And if we're going to put prohibitive costs on playing Magic in some ways, it really shouldn't be on the mana base you're building. So I had a lot of choice when filtering cards out for this deck, so the maybes were pretty difficult, and I'm very happy with this deck, but any of these 10 maybe cards could probably make it into the deck one way or another. Dream Salvage, really interesting draw spell. Draw cards equal to the number of cards target opponent discarded this turn. If it was like 2 mana and all opponents discarded, probably would have been more in there, but with the way that there's a lot of everyone discards kind of stuff going on, and it's not really, there's some targeted stuff, but I just wanted more efficient and reusable draw engines for the deck. Bedlam, everyone can't block. This card would have been easy to put in, but you're not going as so wide as having a couple key creatures with flying trying to attack, so Bedlam would help you get in, but it would help other people get in on you a lot easier. Battle Mage's Bracers, another duplicating effect for activating your commander's ability, but I just thought Illusionist Bracers, and because you can activate Rings of Wraithhearth on like a commander or a different creature, I thought that would be better. Wheel of Torture makes people take damage for having low hand sizes, but I just felt like they're just dealing damage or draining life based off discarding cards would be better than that. And then Raging River, I just wanted to put it in here because when I was doing a live stream, this card came up, and it is wild. So whenever one or more creatures you control attack, each defending player divides all creatures without flying they control into a left pile and a right pile. Then for each attacking creature you control, choose left or right. They can't be blocked this combat except by creatures with flying and the creatures in a pile with the chosen label. This card is hilarious. Like, it's expensive. It has no real reprints. It's nuts. It's so funny. I can't believe this card exists. Like, it's just one of those cards that when you read it, you go, yeah, wow, that's a magic card, huh? And it wouldn't work with this deck because all the creatures have flying. I just wanted to bring it up in a video because holy crap, this card's just so insane. And then the rest of the category, we have Nat Miser, which represents a couple different reduced maximum hand size cards. The issue with these is people are going to be playing spells, and very often people aren't going to be at max hand size, so not being at max hand size isn't really, or having a max hand size reduced is not really that big of a deal here. Especially if it's only by one. And then Bottomless Pit, again, I said I cut out some effects that do make everyone discard during their upkeep because it also hits you. But yeah, still, they could be very good in this deck. I just didn't want to run them because I didn't want to be the one discarding. Like I said earlier, I'm down on Wheels, so Windfall's not in the deck, but it still discards, and I could really see it being in the deck, absolutely. Una's Black card, whenever creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. If you want to lean into 1/1 counter some more, do that kind of stuff, Una's Black card is very cool. I like the little tiny acorn hat, like stick rapier she's got going on there. But I just didn't really feel like it was super important in this deck. And then the Raven Man, making it a 4 mana tap and make everyone discard. I mean, that's fine. That's almost kind of efficient. Most 4 mana sorceries do that, make people discard 2 cards, but 4 mana to discard 1, that seems fine on a creature. And at the beginning of each end step, if a player discard a card, you gotta make a 1/1 Blackbird creature token, which is kind of cool. That means whenever you discard a card, you also get to make them. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, these cards just weren't good enough for me, what I was trying to do with this deck, but I could see all of these in any Gwendlyn to Corci deck. So let me know what you think. I'm very happy with it. I think this deck's awesome. I would probably never play it. I mean, I'm going to play it eventually. I'm going to play all these decks eventually. But it's just, man, I don't like making other people discard cards. It just feels mean. I want people to play their cards so I can see them, and then I'll remove them. I want people to give people a chance to play their cards. That's why I don't like counter spells. But man, it's just like, it really just sucks the fun out of the game when like everyone's hellbent or everyone's low on cards and just can't really do much. I was watching a Commander at Home video recently where Olivia, she was just top decking, and she top deck land, and she didn't really get to do much because one of the guys at the table, can't remember his name, feel bad about that, was causing everyone to discard cards whenever he played enchantments, and that just drained her hand, and then she was just hellbent with like a crap ton of lands out, nothing to do. So yeah, not a big fan of card draw because of just the way it can make players kind of out of the game in just like a not fun kind of way. These are my socials: Twitch, where I live stream. I'm not going to be live streaming the week this video comes out, or probably the week after, but that's fine. I live stream most other times, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Twitter is when I tell people I'm going live, and when I tell people that these videos are out, so follow me on there if you don't want to miss any of the stuff I'm doing. In the new year, I am going to start making TikTok content. I've kind of finally figured out what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be posting on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Reddit is, I'm also going to try to figure out to do some stuff on there. I kind of think I might know what I want to do there, but I'm not sure yet. And then Architect and Moxfield are where all these deck lists live. So thanks for watching, and as always, get building, splainers. That is so